Alrighty, well, welcome. Thank you so much everyone for joining me today. Welcome to one of our Wellness Wednesday presentations. Today we're going to do understanding identity theft, prevention, and recovery. So thank you again for joining us at this beautiful business center we have here at the Mayo Employees Federal Credit Union. We're very lucky and fortunate to have it. And my name is Stephanie McCraffick. I'm the Enterprise Risk Management Specialist here at the credit union. I have worked in the financial industry for about 19 years now, and I've been working in the fraud profession, the anti-fraud profession, for about 9 years. And I am a certified fraud examiner. Something else you should know about me is I'm very passionate about educating people to help protect themselves and their family from fraud and fraudsters and scam artists. So today we're going to go through identity theft as the growing threat, understanding what identity theft is, the common types of identity fraud, preventative measures, how to respond to identity theft, and then just some general spreading of education and awareness. So identity theft has been growing. If we look at the total compromises in 2023, we had 3,205. That's total compromises. Bear with me one second here. For our victims, we had 353 million victims. Okay, this is due to data breaches, data exposures, data leaks, and unknown compromises. The top industries that are experiencing the most compromises are healthcare, financial services, professional services, manufacturing, and education. So what do these compromises mean? Well, they mean more victims, more fraud, and more identity theft. So the Consumer Centennial Network had 5.4 million reports of fraud. So what they do when they get these fraud reports is they categorize them into 29 different categories. And in 2023, the top 3 were identity theft, imposter scams, and then complaints against credit bureaus, information furnishers, and report users. There was 2.6 million fraud reports. And of that, 27% of people reported a loss. $10 billion in total fraud losses. Okay? And when we look at fraud losses and reporting fraud, it's only about 30% of people who actually report. That's like 1 in 400 people who are actually reporting this. So this number doesn't even hit what's really happening. So we've got a little bit deeper into kind of what's happening is we have 42% of people who reported had said they were victims due to social media identity theft. 40% has been from SMS text phishing, so text messages. 33% is financial account takeover. 34% reported losses between $100 and $500. 15% over $1,000. 30% have been a victim at least once in 2023 from a compromise, from a data breach. And then 18% continue to face financial loss as a consequence of identity theft. The one thing I want to say about this number is because of actions people intend to take. They have every intention of doing preventative steps and you're supposed to do this, you're supposed to do that, and they want to take those steps, but they don't necessarily get to it. So that's definitely something that could be a little bit lower. So what is identity theft? So traditional identity theft or stolen identity occurs when an individual or a group of individuals commit a crime by stealing a person's personal, private, and or financial information that belongs to somebody else with the intent to assume that individual's identity. So with a traditional identity fraud, you have a fraudster who's pretending to be a real person, and they're using that person's identity, credit, and credentials. So you've got your fraudster using a real person's name, real person's social, real person's credit cards. That's traditional identity fraud, okay? This crime affects both the consumer that has their information stolen and the organization and businesses that the information is being used at. Synthetic identity fraud is fully partial or manipulated profiles that use bits and pieces of real information to create a fully synthetic person. So you've got the fraudster who's taking a fake name and ID information, a random social security number they stole, and they're making a new person. So, and these identities are typically going to be used for committing fraud like fake IDs or passports, opening loan or bank accounts, insurance fraud claims, criminal records, things like that. And most often the victims are going to be children, elderly, deceased, or immigrant populations that they're stealing and manipulating and using this information from. Not always the case, but those are the ones that they like to target. So getting information and finding it and piecing it all together is not really hard anymore. With the advancing technology, any bit of your social security number, they can decode it. They can figure out the year you were born, the state you're in, and they can completely decode your social security number. Once they have that, there are websites that will generate completely fake people. They can put in different criteria and they can give you region, birthday, name, address. They'll even give you your zodiac sign. And once they have this information, they've got this whole person built, then they can give you, with generative AI, they can create a whole fake person with a photo and everything now. So we're going to go through just a little exercise here. I want to see if you can spot which one of these photos are fake. So we're going to go, got like 3 or 4 of these. We'll do, this is number 1, this is number 2. So who thinks number 1 is fake? Okay, how about number 2? Number 1's the real one. How about this one? Who thinks number 1 is fake? Okay, how about number 2? Okay. This one's the real one. Okay.
How did you guess that?
We'll get there. Don't worry. The question was how we guess that. I'll show you some tips here. Okay, again, number 1 or number 2? How about number 1? Number 2. Okay. Number 2 is real. Okay. And this is the last one. How about number 1 and number 2? Okay. Number 1's the real one. So when it comes to generative AI, it's constantly advancing and the technology is getting better and better. Some things now that you can watch for are pictures that have the eyes right in the center of the photo. They kind of have this like unobtrusive, like nice, kind of easy smile. You're going to look for in the background, what's going on? Is the background like weird or distorted plants or buildings? Is the words on buildings or signs, is it gibberish or a made-up language? And then do they have mismatched earrings? Are pieces of glasses missing? Are the hands weird? Generative AI right now has a really hard time with hands, right? So that can be a really big clue when you get full body ones. This also happens with like news and media. Like when you're looking at stuff that's happening in your feeds and your news, look for these things because some of it could be fake news.
So those are generated images, not photographs or something?
The question is, these are generated images, not photographs. These are completely fake people. The computer made these up. Okay?
In what kind of circumstance would we be looking for that?
A lot of the times you're going to see this stuff like with romance scams, if you have, or like investment scams, like you're interacting with anytime you're interacting with a person that you're meeting online, that you're not directly face-to-face interacting with, is going to be when you'll see it. The question was, when will we interact and see this kind of stuff? Those are opportunities, and then again, you may not see the exact face shots like this, but you'll see a lot of this AI in like fake news and out in kind of the online universe. We're now in a space where we can no longer trust the information that is being given to us without validating it first with multiple sources. All right, so let's go through some of the common types of identity fraud. So first we have your financial identity fraud. This is the most recognized for us. It's going to be occurring when somebody uses a person's information to get goods, services, or information about them, and then they're going to make fraudulent purchases, open up bank accounts, file false fraud insurance claims, utility accounts, apply for jobs, false tax returns. That's this bucket. Then we have medical identity fraud. So medical identity fraud is when someone's going to use your medical benefits to obtain medical care for free. And then we have criminal identity fraud. So this is when someone is going to steal an individual's information and then pass themselves off as that individual to escape summons, criminal charges, warrants of arrest, anything that, you know, they're doing something bad and they're trying to avoid getting caught. And then child identity fraud. Surprisingly, child identity fraud is really common among people the child knows. They use their identity and information to get mortgages, become a renter, get loans, things like that. And additionally, children's identities are often stolen and used to create synthetic identities because most of the time they go unmonitored until well into the, you know, young adolescence to adulthood. Question up front.
Who's responsible for this? Okay, I'm just here. Somebody pretends they're me, and some bank cashes or gives them a loan. Why am I held responsible for that? The bank should be the one.
Okay, so the question is who's responsible when identity theft fraud happens? Like the everyday person, the consumer whose their identity is being stolen isn't doing anything. He's saying the bank should be liable. Well, a lot of that depends on the situation, your involvement or not, and most of the time the banks should be liable to help with whatever's happening, right? They should be. And there are things that you as a consumer, which we will go through here in a little bit, need to do to make sure you're protected when that happens. Okay, we'll get there. All right. So how are they getting our information? What tactics are the criminals using? So they're using phishing tactics. This is going to be through your email, you know, pretending to be companies you trust, people you know, trying to collect information that way. Computer takeovers and hacking, the Microsoft pop-up scams. I am telling you, this scam is one of the worst. When you see it, if you have, like, you click on a Facebook ad and then all of a sudden you have a pop-up on your computer and it starts like yelling at you to call this phone number, that's not Microsoft. You need to power your computer down right away. This is a huge tactic that they're using. Unsecure internet connections, so using public Wi-Fi. This is one we'll go into way deeper when we do our cyber health presentation, but every Wi-Fi that you connect to with your phone is a vulnerability that somebody can get in and get your information. If it is not protected, if you're not using a VPN, it's not secure. You should not be logging onto your bank accounts, your social media, things like that. So don't go running up your data plans because I told you to do this. Check what your data allows. Don't hold Stephanie accountable. Stephanie told me to. No, check your data plan. But if you have the capacity, I 100% recommend using your data plan over using Wi-Fi when you're in public spaces, if you are not at home on your secured network. Malicious websites, data breaches, public record searching, family identity theft. Shoulder surfing, this is where somebody is looking over your shoulder. So when you're out in the coffee shop and you're logging into your bank account, are you looking at who's watching around you as you're typing in passwords? Social media, home and car break-ins, dumpster diving, losing a smartphone or a digital device, or it's stolen wallet, and then card skimmers and shimmers. So this is how they're getting all of our information. So what information are they looking for? What are they trying to get? What is personal private information, PII? This is information that when used alone or in partnership with other data can identify a specific individual. And, excuse me, while many pieces of information are out there publicly about us, it's the combination of the data that makes it dangerous. So always protect your social security number, your IDs, credit card numbers, bank account numbers, login credentials and passwords. This goes for those two-factor codes you get by text too. Be very careful who you're giving those out to. With us here at the credit union, you don't give them to anybody. The only time you use them here is when you're trying to do something in your online banking. Okay, you don't give those to anybody. But what makes it really dangerous with your name, your email, your home address, and your phone number, this is their gateway to you. This is how they get to you. And when they can get a conversation going with you, that's when things get the most dangerous because it's the opportunity for them to collect more and more information. Okay? So what can we do? So here's some preventative measures. So first we're going to talk about our Social Security number. There's a lot of companies and organizations that need your Social Security number. IRS, your financial institution, your employer, Medicare and Medicaid, and tax returns. Organizations like these will not call, email, or text you to ask you for this information. But there are a lot of other organizations out there that want your Social Security number. It may make their life a lot easier, but they don't need it. And this is where you really should start asking some questions about why. So this may include your medical provider, school, and other companies, doctors, sports clubs, child camps, loyalty programs, charities. Now, with schools, keep in mind, you're not required to provide your Social Security number to enroll a child in school. There are additional forms they'll make you fill out, but you don't have to provide it. Same thing with the doctor's office. Unless you are on Medicare or Medicaid or dentist, you actually do not have to provide your Social Security number. Now keep in mind, they also do not have to take you as a patient. So there is a balancing act, okay? So before giving out your Social Security number, ask some questions. Why do you need it? How are you going to protect it? Can you use a different identifier? And then can you just use the last 4 of the social? Like, do they really need the whole thing? Some of the alternatives they might be willing to accept are going to be your driver's license, passport, current and previous address, and if you have a student ID, if you're a student. Just check and make sure I didn't miss anything. All right, so one of our next preventative measures here is monitoring and shredding. So when we talk about your financial accounts, your financial institutions, your deposits, your investment accounts, make sure that you are setting up security alerts on your accounts. So inside your online banking, there's all these different alerts that you can get. My 100% I recommend everybody do is your online banking login alert. It's an alert notification where every time you log into online banking, it's going to pop up and alert you somebody logged into your online banking. I recommend this one because if you're not logging in at that moment, you should be concerned, and your first call should be to your financial institution. Okay? And then check your financial statements in your banks often. Once a month, at minimum, check your statement. But once a month is really not enough anymore. When it comes to fraud and financial identity theft, it's not enough anymore. So check it often. When you're looking at statements, know when your print or cut date is. Your cut date's on the 1st. Know that. Know what date your statement prints on. And then know about when should your statement arrive. Be on the lookout for it. If you don't get it, don't wait. Call right away. Let them know you didn't get your statement, because that could be the first signs that was stolen and identity theft could start to occur. Know how your statement should arrive. Do you get your statements by mail, or do they come in your online banking through electronic methods? And you can also set up statement alerts. It'll be alert to say, your statement's ready, your statement's been cut, it's on its way. There's different alerts out there based on your financial institution. When we talk about medical statements and bills, again, know how your statement or your bill should arrive. Is it paper or electronic? After you've had care, watch for these expected bills. And then review all your medical bills for abnormalities. There's a lot that goes into medical fraud in general, so make sure your bills you're paying for what services you actually got. But in general, make sure you're checking them for that they're your services, not someone else's in addition. And then make sure you're shredding all your documents. Anything that has personal information on it, medical or financial. MEFCU offers a free shredding event every year here in Rochester at this location, actually in one of these rooms. So find a local organization if you're not local here to the area that offers free shredding events. There's a lot of them. It's a great way to securely destroy those documents. And then credit reports. So know your credit report. So review your credit report regularly at annualcreditreport.com. So you're going to have to provide your name, your address, your social, your date of birth. You're going to have to provide prove who you are. But this website here, annualcreditreport.com, make sure you get the .com, that's important, because any other dot could get you to a fraud place. This is the only free government-backed reporting website, okay? It will safely get you to the 3 major credit bureaus. And consider placing a credit freeze. We're going to talk about this a little bit later about exactly what that is and how to do it. Monitor your credit. So there's self-monitoring. So this is where you're going to check it yourself here at annualcreditreport.com. Make sure everything looks okay. And then you're going to look for, we'll go through that a little bit more detail later about exactly what you're looking for, but you're looking for abnormalities that are different than what you would expect. And then there's credit monitoring services. These are commercial services that charge you a fee to review your credit report and alert you that something has changed on your account. So let's talk a little bit more about these monitoring services. So credit monitoring services, or free credit monitoring even, is different than identity theft protection and monitoring services. So with credit monitoring, you tend to get this free with like your credit cards, your bank accounts, things like that. You'll get the credit monitoring piece. Whereas the identity theft monitoring, they're going to go one step further. They're going to monitor your credit cards, your bank accounts. They're going to monitor fraud chat rooms, public record searching. They're going to monitor black marketplace websites for your information. And they may even offer protection software and have some recovery services and benefits as well. So some things to consider before you are going to choose to purchase one of these services is what's already included with your credit cards or your financial institution. You don't want to pay for something you're already getting for free. A lot of the times when there are credit breaches and data breaches, they're going to offer you free credit monitoring. Free isn't always free. Sometimes there are cancellation fees or service charges associated with that free credit monitoring. Understand exactly what you're paying for. Read the fine print closely. And make sure you research the company. Look through the BBB, the FTC. Make sure that the company is known, recognized, reputable. Do a Google search that says like the company name with scams or fraud reviews, things like that. And then how are they protecting your information? You are giving these companies a lot of information about you. How are they keeping it safe? I tend to not tell people what to choose, but when you are looking at companies, maybe steer away from things like, I don't know, a company like LifeLock where its CEO has been compromised something like 17 times. Maybe not the company I would choose to be holding my information. Things to consider. The number one thing to understand when you're looking at these services is what's being offered and what are the terms before you sign up. Question up front.
You get one of these letters from AT&T, my last one. We've been compromised. Your information was in it. You should do these steps.
Mm-hmm.
Can we trust that to choose a monitoring device or that?
So the question is, when you get a letter about a data breach, they give you steps to take and sometimes offer you free credit monitoring in those services. They tell you what steps to take. They want to know, can you trust that? Yes and no. So it's great that they're telling people what to do, right? It's really responsible for them to try to help when they've had something happen. What I would say is, again, it is a free monitoring service. So when you go to sign up for it, make sure you understand what are the terms and conditions of the free service. How long is it for? Do you have to pay to cancel it? Things like that. What exactly is being offered? When you do also get those letters or emails, again, you cannot trust every communication you get anymore. You need to validate it. So make sure you're going to the trusted website, the app, and validating that a letter of that kind was sent out. Bring it to your local store, confirm that they did send the letter before you follow the instructions to some website or link.
So I have to go to AT&T and ask it?
I would go to AT&T and check. I mean, on their website, they should, if they have a data breach, they should have information on their website where to confirm it. Yep, they should.
Couple of online questions.
Online questions, okay?
So Scott T asks, if I hire a credit monitoring service to scan dark websites for my info, can the search using my info be intercepted by scammers?
Ooh, that's a really good question. Can the search using, so,
Repeat the question for us.
yeah, repeat it one more time for me.
So basically, Scott's asking that if, say, he hires a credit monitoring service to scan these dark websites, looking for if his info, social, anything like that is anywhere, can then that information that he puts in with the credit monitoring service be intercepted by scammers?
Gotcha. Okay, I'm clear on the question. Okay. So my first thing is, it's not a credit monitoring service you would be hiring. It would be an identity theft one, because credit monitoring won't do anything other than monitoring your credit. Okay. Part two, there is always a risk when you hire someone to monitor your identity, your credit, anything, and you give them information about you, there is always a risk that that information could potentially be compromised. Intercepted, not so much. But compromise, should that like identity theft monitoring service itself have a data breach of some kind, and they are more heavily targeted because they have a lot of information. That's why it's important to know, how are they protecting you? What is their reputation? And they're going to have data breaches, so it's more about how do they handle those data breaches? Do they communicate to you quickly? Do they tell you what you should do for next steps? Like, you need to change your master password. You need to do these things to protect yourself. So there's definitely a benefit, but it is a risk versus, it's a choice. It's a risk choice at the end of the day. And if you're not actively monitoring that kind of stuff yourself, or you don't have the capacity to or the capability to, I think it's definitely worth it in some cases. Okay, second question.
You may be getting to this in the presentation yet, but Anna V asks, how do I research these companies? I'm guessing she's probably talking about credit monitoring and identity theft monitoring.
Yeah, I mean, the best way to start is just with a Google search, right? Credit monitoring companies, identity theft monitoring companies, to kind of see what's out there. I do have a list of companies that I like and I appreciate. I don't have them all off the top of my head. That I would be willing to provide. If she wants to shoot me an email, we can get her my email address, we can get that list out. And we do cover a little bit of that in one of our other presentations. We get like a full list of recommendations for companies that are pretty solid. But that's a good point for next time. Maybe I'll get a list out here so we have it ready for everybody. Question in the room?
Good. Just a quick one.
Nope, you're good.
I had this happen. I called another credit union to transfer some money.
Mm-hmm.
And for the identification, they wanted my social security number.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I'm not going to give that. And I said, well, then we're not going to deal
Mm-hmm.
with it. So I had to give the social security number.
Yes.
That was about 10 a.m. in the morning. At 1 p.m. in the afternoon, Discover Card sent me a notice that my social security number has appeared on the dark web.
Okay.
And out of the blue, I mean, I think I told Social Security to monitor that.
Yeah.
number. The call to the credit union was legit. The fund, somebody was eavesdropping the phone call, I guess.
So the conversation is talking about, there was a phone call made out to another credit union. They asked for the social security number. He didn't want to provide it, but they needed it, so they wouldn't help him. And then later that day, his credit card company called or messaged and said his social security number had been compromised. And he was saying that he thought maybe somebody was listening. I will say probably not. The chances of that is unlikely. It's kind of one of those rare circumstances of like things happening at the same time. I will say, when you call someone, like when you are calling the bank, you initiate the call, you're going to have to provide that information to verify you, because you don't want us giving out your information to just anybody. So we're going to ask those security questions, and we have to have that information to verify you. But if we call you, we're not going to be asking you those questions. If I call you, I'm going to pick up the phone and be like, hey, Mr. Jones, I have a concern about something I'm seeing on your card. Can we talk about this? Because I know I'm calling you. I've got your phone number and information. I know it's you. That's the difference, okay? Not to say, with the technology out there, not to say somebody could never be eavesdropping, but it's highly unlikely, because to do that kind of a scam, it takes a lot of money, time, and energy. And that's not the scammer's goal. They want quick money as easy as possible. And with so many of the other scams that work so well right now, that's really not the technology they're using just yet. Yeah. All right. See if there's anything I missed here, and then we'll move on quick. Love the questions, though. Keep them coming. We're talking about researching companies. Again, the best thing you can do is, I said, Google them. Also check BBB, State Attorney General's website. Those will be good places to check. The other thing you can do is also type in the company's name and type in data breaches, because then it'll pull up any news-related information about data breaches they've had that'll kind of give you an idea of where they sit and the information that's out there. All right, so our next preventative measure here is increasing online security. So as I've mentioned, we do a whole presentation on cyber security health and preventative measures. Give me 1 second. So we don't get into a ton of detail here. We're going to go through kind of the high-level basics. So number one, use strong passwords and change them often. Consider using a password manager. So anybody who is in cybersecurity that may be watching online or in the room, cover your ears. You're not going to like what I'm going to say. If you do not like technology, or if technology makes you uncomfortable or squirmy, it is safer for you to write your passwords down on a piece of paper in a notebook and keep it at home in a vault than try to mess with the technology, okay? They're not gonna like that I say that. They won't. But it is less likely that someone's going to break into your home and steal your password book than for someone to hack into your phone if you don't understand it, okay? Now, that being said, keep it at home. Don't be walking around with it in your purse or in your wallet, things like that. Don't carry your Social Security card around with you. Keep that stuff locked up, safe, okay? All right, so when we talk about strong passwords, let's want long passwords, 16 characters plus, unique, never reuse or share passwords. I know you all hate me for saying this because we use passwords across your social media. That's the same as your bank. That's the same as your email. That is a hacker's dream. They're like, great, I can get into all of it at once. Don't reuse them. Don't share them. Avoid common dictionary words. The most common passwords in 2024, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. QWERTY. That's like the key, like the one strand right across the top of the keyboard. It's not clever. They know that. It's not clever. Password. Right? Like these are not the types of passwords you want to be using. Make them complex. Use upper and lowercase letters, numbers, spaces, special characters.
You can put a space in a password?
Depends on the program, yeah. Yep, use them if you can though. And then I recommend like password phrases. So like an example I like to give is like Marmaduke is a sloppy dog, but change like the A to the @ sign and the S to the $sign. Right? Something that's funny or memorable for you, that's more of a phrase that isn't put out there in the social media world. But it'll be easier for you to remember because it means something. Use password authentication or passkeys whenever possible. So passkeys are a way to log in without a password. So what they're doing is they're using your phone or your other device to authenticate who you are before giving you access to your apps or your accounts. And there's a lot of security that happens behind the scenes on these, but essentially what's happening is the main benefit of these passkeys is they can't be stolen like a password can. So they're the strongest current form of protection that's offered. They're a really great alternative to passwords. They use a unique ID that is generated for each specific device, account, application, or website. And they bring more resilience to phishing because again, they can't say like, oh, let me enter in your username and password. It doesn't work that way. So it's private. So the information that's being stored is connected with your device. It's not being stored over at like the Amazon website. It's being stored with your device. and it's simple and intuitive. So passkeys use like your device lock on your phone. So it's like your face, your fingerprint, your pattern, your PIN. Those are going to be how you use your passkeys. Some of you may even be using them and you're not even aware of it, that that's what they are. So when it comes to increasing online security, another huge thing you can do is recognize phishing attempts. So this is the big one. If you were not expecting it, don't answer it, don't open it, don't respond to it. Text, phone, voicemails, emails, if you don't know who it is, let it go. If it's important, they will leave you a message, they will contact you again, and verify it. Like I said before, we can no longer trust the information coming to us without verifying it. We need to verify before we trust. Look at, does it create a strong emotional reaction? If you get an email and you're like, woo, or if any emotion like that is triggered, that is your flag to stop and really look it over, run it by somebody else before you take an action on it. Because what they're trying to do in those moments is they are trying to create an emotional response, amygdala hijacking, so that fight or flight response. They're trying to trigger that in your brain so that your logic brain cannot function, okay? If it seems too good to be true, it is. It's one of those things, like if you're like, oh yeah, this looks amazing, it's too good to be true. Really fine-tooth comb, look it over. Handle all emails, calls, texts as suspicious until they're proven legitimate. Guys, I drive my people in my family crazy because they will send me a message on like Facebook or LinkedIn and I'll be like texting them like, did you send me this message? And they're like, yes. Like I drive them nuts, but seriously, that's the world we live in. And if you take action on something, if you click on something, if you call somebody, call an IT professional for support right away. Call your financial institution. And when I say IT support, I do not mean, you know, your grandson who's really great with computers, your friend down the street who's great with computers. Those people are amazing for things that we need help with, but they are not professionals. They are not working in this industry every day, in and out, seeing what's happening. You need to take those devices and things to professionals who can make sure that they are safe for you to use. Geek Squad, Miracle Computers here in town. My online folks, if you're not local, sorry, I don't have specific to all your different areas, but look for something that is local, reputable, in-person, trusted IT. Use secure websites and networks. When you're going on websites, look for HTTPS. S means secure versus HTTP. To get the S, you have to pay money. It doesn't mean that they're always 100% safe, but they're going to be safer than the HTTP because it's money scammers would have to spend. And they don't want to spend their money. Like we said before, log on to password-protected Wi-Fi. Now, the Wi-Fi located like here at the credit union, completely different than the Wi-Fi at the airport. If you're logging here at the credit union, yes, we have public Wi-Fi, but it is on our secure network, it is protected, and we are monitoring it. If you log in at the airport to their public Wi-Fi, you are free game for whoever's on that network. They're different. They're not all created equal. And make sure you're updating software, antivirus, and malware regularly. This includes on your phones. If you have your devices set up to automatically install updates, still check them regularly. You would be shocked at how often updates don't actually push through when they first come out. Maybe it's like 2 weeks later that they finally update, just based on when you're on Wi-Fi, when you're on cellular data, things like that. And that could leave you open and vulnerable to bugs or security gaps that have been identified, and that's why the update was done. Oops, just making sure I catch everything here. Yep, okay. All right, so let's talk about responding to identity theft. So you've had identity theft happen, you've had some fraud, you know they're using your information, now what? So one of the first actions you're gonna do is you're gonna contact the places where you know the fraud is occurring or has occurred. You're gonna go to their direct website or app. This is the other thing when we talk about secure websites I forgot to mention. If you Google a company, So let's say you're going to Google Amazon customer support. It's a big one that happens to people. Amazon customer support. Fraudsters pay to have fake websites sponsored for exactly that. They will create a fake Amazon support number and a website and then pay to have that bumped up so it is the first one that pops up when you Google that. So when you are Googling companies, make sure you are going to their legitimate website. Never click on the sponsored link. Keep scrolling. Look for the actual website. Check it's HTTPS and it's their correct link and go to that one. Apps are great because so far they're harder to spoof and make fake apps. So those are good. Ask them for the fraud department. Tell them you want to close the account or freeze the account depending on what's happening, so this prevents new charges or opening of new accounts without approval. Ask them what additional security measures they can put in place for you. Can they add a password? Can they add extra layers of authentication in your online banking? Like what's available from them to increase your security? And then go through and change all of your logins, passwords, and PINs that are associated with those accounts. And if you share those passwords, then for all of your accounts. Okay. So one of the things to note is that you might have to contact these companies again after you've completed the FTC's identity theft report. But this is the first step because you got to stop the fraud from happening before you move to the next step. All right, and then the next step is going to be to place a fraud alert. So you're going to do this again at annualcreditreport.com, which will lead you to the 3 major credit bureaus. Fraud alerts are free. You only have to contact one of the 3 bureaus, and they are required to tell the other 2. And they're going to limit new accounts or changes to your accounts from happening. So before anything can be changed or updated or done on your accounts, there's going to be a phone number that you provide when you put this fraud alert on that they're going to have to call you at and verify that the change needs to happen or should happen. And then they're going to send you a confirmation letter by mail. There are 3 types of fraud alerts. So there's an initial fraud alert. This is for 1 year. This is going to be if you think you've become a victim of identity theft, or it can be used as a preventative measure. And it's for a 1-year duration, and it can be renewed every year after that. You can just keep renewing it. Okay? Then there's an extended fraud alert. So this is if you have been a victim of identity theft, you have an FTC identity theft report, they will do a 7-year fraud alert. And then there's an active duty military alert, which is a duration of a year to help prevent fraud when you're deployed. Okay? So then we're going to look at security freezes. So security freezes can be a preventative and a reactive measure to identity theft. I personally recommend every single person in my life to have their credit frozen with a security freeze. This means that nobody can pull credit without your permission, or at all. They can't pull credit. It's frozen. So it's free and it will remain on there until you remove it. You have to place this one with each individual bureau. You have to go to each one and place the freeze. And like I said, businesses will be unable to pull credit. You're completely in control. And what I love about this is it's the most maximum secure thing you can do to protect your credit. Now, let's say you want to go buy a car, you need to have your credit pulled. You can go on and put a temporary lift. Say you know what days you're going to go car shopping. You can put a lift on from this date range to this date range with all 3 bureaus. Go do your car shopping, and then when you're done, it'll automatically put it back on for you. So it doesn't stop you from using credit when you need to. Yes, there's an extra step you need to take. If you lose your password or your PIN to one of these, it takes like an extra hour to recover it, right? So there are things to manage, but it is one of the best ways you can do to protect your credit. With all of these, in order to do a security freeze, you will have to provide information again. You're going to have to give your full name, your social security number, your address, your date of birth, addresses if you've lived at before. You may have to provide an ID, so they're going to verify that you're you. But once you get it placed, it's pretty easy. Review your credit reports regularly. Again, if I think we've had it a few times, hopefully annualcreditreport.com. Never pay to get your credit report. You do not need to pay to get your credit report. You can get it for free here every week, once a week with all 3 bureaus. You can check it for free. When you are looking at it, what you're going to be looking for are accounts or transactions that you don't recognize. You're going to be looking for weird phone numbers or addresses that either are not familiar or they're not associated with you at all. Like maybe your son's phone number ended up on your credit report. Like, why did that happen? His phone number shouldn't be on your credit report. And then inconsistencies with your private information. Is there like a weird social security number that's been added to yours? Or like, has your social security number, like a variation of it been added, like a flip digit? Okay. If you have something happen where your identity is being used, report to the FTC immediately. You're going to go through, it's identitytheft.gov, or you can call. There's 3 ways to file these reports. You can do it online, creating an account, online without creating an account, and then by phone. Now, what I will tell you is that if you do it online and do not create an account, or you call in by phone, you will have to print and save everything right away. You will not be able to go back to it. If you're calling, you'll get a paper copy by mail. And there's no help tracking or updating anything. So if more stuff happens later, you got to start all over. So I 100% recommend creating that online account. It's going to walk you through each step of your specific situation. It's going to ask you question by question, what's happening, where is it happening, all the things. And you can update the plan as you need. So if something happens later, you can go back through and update that plan. And it's going to track your progress. You know how I said that there's that like 18 or 13% of people who continue to have fraud? It's because they don't take steps like this and protect themselves and track their progress and follow the plan. And then it gives you pre-formed letters and forms. So let's say that credit card company comes after you as a consumer because your identity used $10,000 on their credit card. Completing this report, along with a local police report, you put the 2 together, protects you as a consumer to show that you are a victim. So let's see, you're going to want to include as many details as possible. Like I said, it's going to personalize it, and then you're going to report to your local law enforcement. Getting ahead of myself a little bit. So why to report? It's going to give you that personalized recovery plan unique to your situation. It's going to help local law enforcement and other agencies detect and prevent additional fraud. We have to help each other. If we don't report it, that's why there's only 30% being reported. Can't do anything with things we don't know that's happening. It's going to prove to the business and collection agencies that you are a victim, and it guarantees you those certain rights regarding fraud and identity theft. So it is your letter of protection. Super important. And then if you are dealing with tax, medical, or child identity theft, there is a whole lot more that goes into all of that, which is all covered at identitytheft.gov. So it really does uniquely to your specific situation. It'll help you cover all of it. Just make sure I'm getting everything here. All right. Child identity theft. So Experian estimates that 24%, so that's 1 in every 4 children, will fall victim to identity theft before the age of 18. A child's identity credentials are particularly vulnerable, as I've said, because it can go undetected for years. Most people don't think twice about their kid's social security number or their identity until it's too late. So what can we do? Let's secure your child's credit. Watch for red flags. If you get something like an IRS notice, a credit card statement, anything with your child's name on it in the mail or an email, take action right away. Contact the company, figure out what's going on. Don't delay. If you see something, take action immediately. Freeze your child's credit. We're going to go through a little bit of the steps on how to do that next, but you can do identitytheftcenter.org, child identity theft, but there are additional steps for kids. Take extra precautions. So make sure you are shredding all of your family's sensitive documents and that you're keeping them in a sensitive, secure, like safety deposit box, fireproof safe, somewhere safe at home. Again, social security numbers are optional. When it comes to our children, everybody wants their social. I don't get it. They don't need it. Be stingy. Guard it, because you're the only one who can. And have the talk. I think this is funny that it says the talk, right? It's not that talk. Talk to your kids routinely about age-appropriate conversations about online safety and private information safety. What information should they be sharing and with whom? Friends online are not your friends. Teach them this early, especially with the world they live in. And then keeping that information to themselves. So how you place a freeze on a minor's credit is, a minor for them is under the age of 16. So you're first going to start by checking if your child has a credit report in their name, has a credit report built. If they do not, request to have a credit file built, and then request immediately to have it frozen upon creation. Okay? For each agency, it has its own processes they're all a little bit different, but generally, they're all going to ask for documentation to prove your identity, your authority over the minor, and your minor's identity. They're going to have a form of theirs that you'll need to complete, and then they're going to ask you to send all that information in. I hate this part, you guys, so much, I can't even tell you. 2 of these 3 bureaus have you mail it in by physical mail. I hate it, but it's the only way to get around it. So use certified mail. It's the safest way you can get it to them, but use the certified mail. Experian is my favorite because they let you digitally upload the documents right to them. So, and typically then you're going to get a response within about 10 to 15 days, letting you know what's going on, everything's secure, that it's frozen. Make sure you keep that information that you've used to create those accounts, because then your minor can unfreeze it at 16 when they're ready, or do what they need to do with it as they grow. We've talked a lot about knowledge and resources and education, so some things I just want to point out is the FTC, the Identity Theft Center, is a really great resource. Frozen PII is a private identity theft resource company. And annualcreditreport.com. When we look at building scam awareness, look at the BBB, the FTC, the FBI, IC3.gov, AARP, and I think that's everybody. There's a lot of them out there, but those ones are really great ones. And don't forget about your financial institution. They offer a lot of tools that can support you in prevention of fraud and identity theft. We've got debit card and credit card suspected fraud alerts. Understand how these alerts work at your financial institution. What should they look like? When would you get them? What kind of a response should you give? Are they going to ask you for a code? No. Most places don't. Transaction alerts. This is the one I was talking about with online banking, the login alert. There's a lot of different transaction alerts that are available. So check them out. Which ones work for you? Which ones will alert you to something weird is happening? Online banking access. Super important, like I said, here and now to monitor your accounts as quickly as possible and as often as possible. A lot of people have concerns about having access to online banking. They think by having access it makes them more vulnerable. It actually doesn't. By having access, it makes you less vulnerable because it means that somebody else isn't going to go and try to log in and get you access on your behalf. So if you're not using your online banking, somebody else could try to. Just a thought. Online and paper statements offer real-time review for both. Make sure you're checking them. We have lots of support. We have phone, text messaging, chat, and then in person. And then we have our financial wellness counselor, Soka. She's in the back of the room right now. She's actually going to be up next doing a great presentation on, hold on, I have it, managing credit wisely. So if you have time to stick around for that one, it's going to be a really good one. But she's really great to help with budgeting, financial goals, recovery when it comes to these scams. Some of them have huge financial impacts, and she's a really great resource to help for recovery. And just know that at Mayo, we support all Mayo families, all Mayo employees and their families, no matter where you choose to do your primary financial and your primary banking, we're here for you. So if you have something weird that comes up, something suspicious, we're here. So we're happy to look over anything. Questions? Yes.
I just have a question. Many years ago, when I worked at Mayo, we could get our insurance. They offered identity theft insurance. What's your opinion of that?
So the question is my opinion on identity theft insurance through your employer. It is one of the cheapest ways to get it, and most of the programs are pretty solid. We have it currently here at the credit union. I utilize it. It's an identity theft, so it comes with a lot of extras, right? So it's doing the dark web monitoring, account monitoring, things like that. Really good option, right? If you don't want to check all that stuff yourself, it's a great option. Now, what I will say with that is one person or one group of people have vetted that company, your employer. You don't know who's doing the vetting, but your employer has vetted them once. I would still vet the company yourself before you sign on. Do your own research, make sure you're good with that company, and then go for it. Yeah. Other questions? Yes.
Do you have, your presentation, do you have handouts on it, or?
You know, we've had that question before. We do not have handouts on the actual presentation. I will take that as a note and see if I can come up with something. I do have, if you are ever scammed or have identity theft and you come see me, I have guides that I will give you, and I will highlight things that are specific to your situation. I do have some of those guides with me for identity theft if you would like one of them. I just ask don't share them outside of the credit union. So, yeah.
There was something earlier. There was a skimmer or a shimmer. I've heard of a skimmer, but what's a shimmer?
Okay, so the question is about the difference between skimmers and shimmers. So they're very similar. It's just the type of technology that's being used to collect the card information off of the devices, off of like gas pumps and things like the terminals. Yeah, those devices are surprisingly quick for people to put on. They can put them on in like 3 seconds with like 12 people standing around them and nobody will notice. So when you go up to like a credit card machine, like look if anything looks weird and kind of pull up on it a little bit. The cashier's gonna think you're crazy, but do it anyway. Pull up on it a little bit, see if anything's loose or pulls off, because it literally looks like the face of the machine. They can be really hard to detect. So, any other questions? Online? Yeah.
So I get a while ago notification that this said that my information is compromised, it's probably out there, but I can't identify this company that sent me the letter. So it may be secondary security, but I don't know whether it's my phone or a credit card or what it is. So how do I?
Sure.
So I'm thinking, well, is this for real or not?
So really great. So the question is, there was a letter that came, they can't identify the company or where it's coming from or why it's coming. Like, is it real? Should they be concerned? Is it secure? What do they do? Right? Okay. So what I would say to that is treat it as fraudulent because you don't know, you weren't expecting it, and take steps to prevent and protect yourself. So in this case, I would check my credit, put a freeze on my credit, make sure everything looks okay, maybe check with my main financial institutions, investments, make sure I have extra layers of security in place to protect myself in case, but I wouldn't do anything on that letter.
Because, it looks legit, it tells me to do all the institutions and stuff like that.
Yeah, and a lot of these things can look very legitimate. So it can be really hard to determine. So I would take additional steps outside of the letter to protect yourself and not necessarily worry about the letter.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. In the back.
You get a notice from, like the credit cards do the credit monitoring for you. You get a notice that your email has been located on the dark web. What steps do you take with that?
So there's a website, I believe it's called I've Been Pawned, like pawn, like a chess pawn.com. That is a really great one to see if your email's out there on the dark web. It probably is. What I would say in those situations is make sure you're changing your email password often. I don't know if I repeated that question. They asked if you get a notification that your email's been compromised, what do you do? Sorry, I forgot to repeat that one, guys. But change your password often for that email, and every email that comes through that inbox, through that email account, should be considered fraudulent, suspicious, until you verify its source. Because if your email is out there, they're going to be trying to send you all kinds of things to get you to click on it, get you to call them, so they're going to be targeting you in that method. So it doesn't mean you have to junk your email. You could use it as your junk email instead. But it's just one to use extra precaution with. Make sure you're strong, complicated passwords.
They talk about the dark web. Can we search them, do our own searches for our identity compromise?
So the question is, we talk about the dark web. Can you do your own searches? My answer to you, sir, is no. Do not go do your own search. So the dark web is very dangerous. It's the internet. It is internet, but it is a separate space in the internet that criminals and fraudsters use. If you were to go on there with your normal everyday computer, you would be hacked like that.
How do you know if you're going on it or not going on it?
If you don't know how to get there, you're not going on it. Okay? The question was, how do you know if you're going on it or not? If you don't know how to get there, you're not going on it. Okay? Yeah, you're good. So it's not something I would recommend seeking out, exploring. It is very complicated, and unless you have the right systems and tools in place to protect yourself and you know what you're doing, it's not for the everyday person to be out there surfing. So that's why for some people it is really worth the investment in those identity programs, because they have people who are experts in that and systems set up that will do that for you. Yep. Anybody? Oh, I didn't even see you over there. I'm so sorry.
If you're told that a piece of information is on the dark web, is there any way to get it off the dark web, or should you just take as many precautions as you can, changing passwords and all?
Yeah, so the question is, if you're told your information's on the dark web, can you get it off the dark web or just take precautions? My answer would be no, you can't get it off the dark web. The only people that are going to get it off the dark web are the FBI. So that is why it's important to report your scams. Because the more scams that get reported, the more information the FBI has, the better they can target these companies that are holding and have our information, and they can get them taken down. The only exception to that, I would say, is that if you know someone who has been victimized or targeted in a sextortion scam, where there are photos of them being shared around, compromising photos of them, like this is really heavily hitting teen boys right now. I think in the last year there were I think we're up to 37 suicides now because of this scam with it, and the suicides are within 4 to 16 hours that this happens. They hit these kids so hard. In those cases, there are tools that the police and FBI have to get these photos down. So those ones they really strike hard on to try to help. So those ones there is ways to get it off, but reporting it is the first step. So yes, take extra precaution if you've been told your information is out there. Chances are all of our information is out there in some capacity because of where we are in the world with data breaches, and we live our lives online. So, next question. Okay, well, we're gonna wrap it up because we do have our amazing SOCA coming up after us, but I will go out in the lobby out here. So if you have other questions for me, I will be out